Welcome to The InEVitable, a podcast by MotorTrend.
Hi there, and Happy New Year, and welcome to The InEVitable. This is the MotorTrend podcast. It's our podcast about the future of transportation, the future of the automobile, the future of General Motors products, which seems to be mostly electric. But before we get to our guest, this guy right here, Ed Lowe, he has a special message just for you.
The InEVitable podcast is brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya. Inspired by the future, designed for the now. And right now, we have a question. It is the new year, but let's talk about something not that old. Yesterday, Jaguar dropped their 0-0 concept at Art Basel in Miami. And prior to that, they kind of lit the social medias on fire with deleting every image on their Instagram account, putting one kind of wacky commercial type thing. One of our staffers said it looked like Zoolander without the comedy. And
Accurate.
And then they dropped some teaser shots, angles of the car, and then finally they dropped it yesterday. Johnny, what did you think of the 0-0 concept by Jaguar?
Yeah, the car. Well, do you want the advertising campaign and then the car? Because I have a different take. I mean, look, if we're working off the notion that no press is bad press, like, no one has thought about Jaguar this much since 1961 when they introduced the E-Type.
Right.
Like the world, now it was all negative, but the world's focus and consciousness was on Jaguar. And I think they actually kind of did a poor job of setting up the car. They should have said, like, the crazy ad that everyone had really visceral negative reactions to, and then tease the car a little bit, because I think people miss the fact that I don't think people are relating the Zoolander on Spike's car radio. We said it looked like a bunch of Tilda Swintons.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think they're relating that to the actual car. Now, the actual car, wow, like, I like that. It's got this like super gangster Dick Tracy, yet they showed in, baby blue and pink, very Miami, very 80s colorways.
Travertine in the interior, copper that changes when you touch it and makes a smell like it's gonna age.
Yeah, smell, I don't know about. Aging copper though, super cool.
Yeah.
Love the interiors, and why not? Like, everything else, Jaguar, they really tried to copy Mercedes, let's say. Okay, they had the F-Type was like the AMG GT. They had the XJ was like the S-Class. The XF was like the E-Class, XE, C-Class, on and on and on. Nobody bought them. Didn't work. So I think go radical. And, you never know. You never know what's going to attract a buyer. I remember when the original RAV4 came out, the little two-door, the little tiny thing. They had a commercial where it was just a very weird car commercial where suddenly it was like kind of running around like a city, like an Edward Scissorhands type, like a weird suburbia thing. And there's a little scene where it goes in and it's going to park, and a little like Chihuahua barks at it, and then the car backs out and parks somewhere else. I worked with a guy and he bought one. I'm like, oh, why'd you buy that? I was always curious. He goes, that commercial with the dog barking at the car, had to get it.
You have weird friends.
What? It wasn't my friend. It was a coworker. Right. Could have been you. And, it was like, I was like, at first I was like, you're insane. But then I was like, you know what? You never know what works. Like, the idea is to sell cars. They were not selling cars. This, maybe they'll sell. So I think it's great. I think it's great.
Well, I'll be much more brief and just say I agree, disagree. I do think
that's a great position there.
I do think it was a home run, absolute knock it out of the park from a marketing perspective. To your point, they got the world talking. Everybody had an opinion. So yes, I don't believe that there's no such thing as bad press. So you got everybody talking about the thing, and then people saw it. I actually think the car, while it has some nice lines to it, it's got a great proportion. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the sales success. They're not selling that, by the way. They're going to come out with a 4-door coupe kind of version of it.
That's right.
But to be honest, is that going to be the thing? My take for MotorTrend, because I've been asked about this a lot, is fundamentally we're a product review site. And our products we review are cars. We don't review marketing campaigns. We generally don't review concept cars like in the full because there's nothing under the hood. You can't drive
we
it.
talk about them.
So we will reserve judgment until we drive whatever the production vehicle of the Type 00 becomes. Done.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
Next up is our guest, who
Yes.
happens to be a Jaguar owner, and we do ask him the question we just asked Jonny. We just answered about the Type 00, amongst many other things. We have Brian Smith, who is the design director for GM's Advanced Design California. They call it ADCA, ADCA. They built a sweet new facility in Pasadena. This is a 30-year veteran of General Motors. He has a non-traditional background in car design, which we'll get into.
He just went to a different school, which somehow makes it non-traditional.
Very non-traditional, given who we've had on the podcast.
I know. It's funny.
We're going to cover a ton of topics. We're going to
Yeah.
ask him some hard questions. He's a super nice guy, very smart.
And his first podcast.
And his first podcast,
Which is-
so we
that's
were
cool.
not that gentle with him. And actually, he can love analog cars and digital cars. Imagine that. So without further ado, Brian Smith.
Brian Smith.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for driving across town, right? Because you're out in the new design studio, GM Advanced Design in South Pasadena?
Pasadena, yeah.
Pasadena, not South
Yep.
Pasadena.
Yeah.
I toured it. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I can say anything about anything I saw in there, but it was very slick.
Maybe break some news.
You could say there was cool stuff in there.
There was cool stuff. I saw something that was designed during the pandemic I can't talk about, but it was cool.
Nice.
Um,
It's like an off-road bus.
cool. Okay, so you're leading GM Advanced Design California, and you're also you got a lot of GM on your resume, obviously, because you've been there almost your entire career, except for like 18 months you spent at Saab.
Yeah. Well, and technically it was an assignment for GM.
Yeah,
So-
'cause-
Right.
yeah.
Saab was owned then by GM. So
That's
yeah,
right.
I've almost 30 years at GM now.
And you have the distinction, I was going to get to this later, but you are like one of the only designers we've had on here, not from Art Center.
Oh, where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I went to the University of Cincinnati.
Really?
Yep.
I mean, we've had, I don't know, a couple dozen designers, it feels like. And I think with the exception of
Ralph
yeah.
Ralph Gilles,
And Henrik Fisker, who went to Art Center in Switzerland.
before they shut that down.
Yeah.
Everyone else is Art Center.
So do you have like a huge chip on your shoulder when you, because like you're like you have to be like the only guy, right? That you do you, or I don't know, maybe is
There are others. Yeah. I mean, we there was a period where Cincinnati was recruited pretty heavily
okay.
back in the day, but
and why Cincinnati? I just never knew they had a car design anything.
they didn't at the time.
Okay.
They have a transportation program now, but back then it was industrial design.
Okay.
My mom worked for the university, so it was free, and
Good
so
reason.
It's hard to pass that up.
That's the best reason.
I
Yeah.
had professors tell me, "You're going to the wrong school. You should go to Art Center. You should go to CCS." And there was
Right.
one moment where I almost like walked out of there and went. And I came across some folks that had made it into the industry from Cincinnati. So I thought I'm going to give it a shot. And it's a co-op school, so lots of opportunities for internships. So I was able to do an internship at Chrysler, Ford,
Oh, okay.
GM. I did the entire big three while I was still in school.
Oh, that's
GM
cool.
was my last one. So
Okay.
So I have a couple friends that went to like Yale or Harvard, and what I notice is they spend a lot of time sitting around talking about going to Yale or going to Harvard. Is that how the Art Center people are? Is there a lot of like?
I don't know. They're a tight alumni network. I'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
But, yeah. But I don't hear a lot
Okay.
of that. There's
All right,
no.
that's a
there's
great
no
question.
gloating. Yeah.
So, doing industrial design in Cincinnati, do you think that helped you? Like, because makes you work harder? You had to like carve out the automotive, or actually, did you go to Cincinnati thinking you wanted to be a car designer, or you're like, man, I want to design packages or like a
Yeah,
consumer
no,
goods?
I knew I wanted to be a car designer.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be a tough road, so yeah, I probably worked a little harder. All of my product design projects I was told looked like they were automotive. And I was like, okay, cool.
Perfect.
So were you said you knew you wanted to be a car designer, so you were aware in high school or earlier that people actually design cars for a living?
Yeah.
How are you aware of that?
From reading MotorTrend? Not really.
Or the real answer?
MotorTrend, among others. I mean, I basically read cover to cover every automotive magazine as a kid from probably age 7 on. And by the time I was 9, I knew I wanted to be a car designer.
And did you have artistic talent?
I did, yeah. Like I had the kind of gasoline in my veins from my dad. He was a car guy, raced NASCAR in the 50s, like when it was still track,
illegal. Yeah.
bring what you got. And my mom's side, my grandfather was an artist, and so I kind of got some of that artistic talent. So everything I drew was cars. I mean, it was.
Okay.
I know I've told the story before because I decided I wanted to be a car designer when I was probably about the same age, and no one in my family knew anything about art. So my dad gave me like a bar of like ivory soap, and I carved a car out of it, and it was horrible. And he worked next to GM. I think the design center used to be out in Westlake back in the 80s. Or some headquarters, or some GM headquarters, and he told me he was going to like show it to them, and I never heard a word. I don't think he ever showed it to them either, but I had no artistic talent, so that's was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. My dad had a story. He wanted to be a car designer, and you know, he had been in racing. I was like, well, it's funny. The only other thing I would want to be than a car designer is a racing driver. So we kind of lived vicariously through each other. But he had snuck into the Highland Park design studio in Chrysler in the 50s. Like, I guess Virgil Exner was probably running it at the time. And he walked around every studio, just dressed up in a suit and followed somebody through the door. And he's got a great story about it. But
Did he get caught?
He did. He found the biggest office he could find, and he went in and he said, "Hey, I want to be a car designer." And the guy was like, "What? How did you get in here?" And he gave him a piece of paper, and he said, "Draw me one." And he said they weren't very impressed, and security came.
Had him arrested. Yeah.
So when you were, say, 7, 8, 9, or when you decided you want to be a car designer, whose design was the influencing, like the person where you're like, or the car that you're like, that's it right there, I want to do that?
Yeah, I remember taking my Ferrari poster off the wall when the C4 Corvette came out. And it was just so shockingly simple and beautiful, and such an upgrade from the C3 that was out there for so long. And I remember the GM concepts at the time. You know, there was a whole string of them from ACC, the Indy Corvette, you know, which we have in the studio right now, just for inspiration. And gosh, what are some of the Buick Wildcat? I remember, I think that was a Kip Wasenko design, but the exposed powertrain in the back, you know, extreme mid-engine proportions. That was like, wow.
And what was the Oldsmobile, like the 280 miles an hour?
Yeah, the Aerotech.
Aerotech. That was the one for me.
Yeah, that was another one.
That was Ed Wellburn, right?
Yeah, that was Ed Wellburn.
But what sorry, cool. What Ferrari poster did you take down?
It was a 308.
308. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then fast forward, it must be like, when did you pinch yourself the hardest at GM design? Is it when you see some of these concept cars, you're like, I read about that in the magazine when I was...
Or when he designed like the C6 or something.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of great project opportunities for me, and I think they've really kept it interesting over the years with, you know, international assignments and things. So, I mean, there's been many. It's hard to point at one. I mean, I love my job. It's
top three things where you say, man, I'm really glad I got to help design these.
Cadillac 16.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we can stop there.
That was my first project as a manager. Very tough project, but super rewarding. You know, just
what an incredible design. Like
was that Wellburn too, or is that?
Wayne Cherry was in charge at the time, but Ed was kind of directing things at up to a point in the project. Yeah.
How close did that come to production? Because I've heard different stories.
We worked for a while on some proposals to get it in production. We just didn't have the right hardware, the right pieces.
Right.
There was one proposal to use some of the hydroforming from Corvette and some of the Corvette components, but it was going to shrink the car quite a bit. And it was like, well, and it's not the same thing.
The 2500 chassis wouldn't work? Like you could
almost the concept did have a version of the rear steer out of the pickups at the time.
Oh, okay. I'm sure you saw, I know Ed wants to ask you this, but the Jaguar 00 concept that showed up yesterday.
Later, but yes.
Well, hang on, but like, boy, that looks a little bit of a Cadillac 16 in that, proportionally and stylistically, you know.
I mean, definitely a long hood. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I remember the car growing. You know, it was like that. A lot of people don't know this, but the 16 started out as a 12. It was going to be a V12 because there was actually one in development at the time based on two of the high feature V6s.
Huh.
And Lutz came in and we pitched kind of some of the concept projects to him, and he's like, 12? Make it a V16.
My man.
Maximum Bob.
He's like,
My
nobody
man.
else could do that but
Right.
Cadillac. You got to do a 16. So the nose got longer. It was 13.6 liter, 2.427s kind of. Yeah. It was awesome project, but
I can answer another one of his
Okay.
of his three because he
Whoa.
put it on his LinkedIn.
oh yeah.
The 2014 MotorTrend car of the year.
Cadillac CTS?
Yeah.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
put that on his, I was like, yes, this guy.
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to.
Is that one of the top three?
It's top five.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The top three, the next two.
Gen 5 Camaro
Oh, yeah.
was a
Yeah.
good project.
Yeah. That's the one that got famous from Transformers Bumblebee.
Yep.
But yeah, very cool design.
So where were you relative? Because we had Sangyup on this podcast. Where were you relative to him on that project?
Well, he was Gen 6.
Was he? But he was.
He was Gen 5 too.
Oh, he
was on
Gen 5? Oh, okay.
He was working for me.
Okay.
And I guess at one point, it was between the two of us to go to Australia to execute the car, and he went and I stayed here. So he kind of finished the car in Australia, but we did a lot of the.
What was a better assignment? Was it a better assignment to go to Australia or?
It would have been pretty interesting. You know,
Okay.
I don't mind. Melbourne's a pretty nice place, but
Right. And that's because it was a Holden
Yes.
mechanically.
right,
It came out of the
exactly.
Holden.
Yep.
It didn't come out of the Holden,
Holden
factory,
hardware.
but it was finished in Australia, and then the
Yeah.
tooling was in.
Yeah, because the Holden studio had all the background on the VE chassis. It was that was the underpinnings. They did the final design work, and then it was built here.
You guys get along? You and Sangyup?
I haven't talked to him in years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He's doing great.
looks like it.
Yeah.
Looks like he's doing
All
all right.
right. Who?
But hang on, last one, top three.
Well, okay. Well, just on this Corvette. This Camaro. Because I asked this before. I can't remember who I asked. Who on earth was responsible for the way that the steering wheel made your wrists
Oh, like this.
turn in?
Yeah,
It was like
the
it
original
was
steering wheel was
it
weird.
was so cool to see that the final version of that looked so close to the concept car, except for I remember driving what the heck is up with this with the
Well,
steering
you had to
wheel?
hold it like this. I
Or
remember.
it
it was really weird.
You know what I'm saying?
Was it the section of the wheel? I
Yeah,
guess
it was like the two big wings that came out were super thick. There was
also-
no way to grab it like a wheel. You had to
yeah.
It was
hold it like
weirdly how
cardboard.
the rim of the wheel also kind of canted inwards, and I was like, this is horrible.
I don't know. No comment. I wasn't involved in the interior. so-
Perfect.
I,
It's nice.
I also
Nice.
noted that in your
Yeah.
resume. You're like, I do a little bit of interiors,
Yeah.
but you're mostly exterior. Okay, all right. Third vehicle.
It's I mean, all the recent Cadillac EVs, I spent time on. I mean, I'm driving a Lyric right now, and it was the first one.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Cadillac Lyric. Close second to that is the Escalade IQ. That was a great
Very
project.
good looking truck. Yeah,
Loved working on that.
coming soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want to talk about. Looking for the best off-road trails? OnX Off-Road has you covered. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. Easily find trails for 4x4s, ATVs, dirt bikes, and more. Our app provides detailed trail info, including difficulty ratings and open/closed dates. OnX Off-Road also helps you navigate public and private land boundaries, ensuring you stay legal. Try OnX Off-Road free for 7 days and discover why it's the go-to app for off-roaders. Download now. Let's talk about some of these EVs, because that's the nature of this podcast. I want to talk about the naming convention you guys came up with. But the first question, because I asked the MotorTrend staff, hey, we got Brian Smith in here. What do you want to pelt him with? And the first
It's
question...
very confrontational for
I am.
absolutely no reason.
I am. The first question is, where are the Cadillac Coupes? You guys have
yeah.
done all sorts of gorgeous concept coupes, and it's like,
I mean, you
it's
really
getting
have.
old that we don't actually, and I know it's unfair to peg you with this because it's I don't think it's your decision whether you just design them, but it's true. Like there's been some beautiful
CL, Mirage,
Soleil, Opulent Velocity, the latest one you guys just dropped, right? Like
I mean, I still remember I was there when the CL rolled out at
Pebble Beach.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood's place in Carmel Valley, and like we were outside, but the air was sucked out of the room. No one had ever seen anything like it. And I remember just like I wrote something like they're committing suicide if they don't put it in production. You know, typical braggadocio.
Hyperbole.
Yeah, hyperbole. That's the word.
Yeah,
but you know, but like that was gorgeous. I mean, like do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a passion in design for coupes and convertibles and, you know, performance vehicles, but the heart of the market is, you know, four-door sedans and SUVs. I mean, we're all car guys, you know, on our side in design. So, I mean, we advocate for those. You probably even saw the recent Instagram post of the coupe that was done in Australia, the Cadillac Coupe.
No, I'll check it out. But that's
it was posted on GM Design Instagram, done years ago and never shown.
Oh.
It was right at the cusp of when we made the decision to really head towards EVs, and it was an ICE-based, you know, Camaro-based underpinnings and modified to make it a Cadillac. But yeah, I mean, coupes are where the passion is, but the market is generally elsewhere.
So I'll just translate. It's your fault out there. You guys keep buying these SUVs and these crossovers. If you bought more coupes, they design more.
However, that's a nice excuse for like Chevy or Buick, but for Cadillac, surely you could make.
Cadillac's got to make money too, otherwise they become
no. But I mean, surely
Jaguar.
a halo vehicle. You know, surely there's room for the standard of the world to have a big, beautiful Cadillac 16. You know, the Mirage. I mean, I remember the Mirage concept a year later, like unbelievable. You know.
Yeah. We love them. We've got El Mirage in the studio right now. So yeah.
No, I guess we got to take it up with probably Mark Royce.
Give Mark a call.
Hey, he's the guy who
he loves that.
Give him a shout. He'll have a good answer for you.
Yes. Okay. So let's go to. Can we just talk about this? Whose fault is the naming convention? So why? I can just go off. Why is it not Celestic? Why is it Celestic?
Tick.
Right, and then it's Vistic, Lyric, Optic, and then Escalade IQ. Is that a marketing?
We call it the Escalade internally.
Yes. So. Well, Escaladic.
No,
yes.
We say Escalade, but yeah.
Okay. So is that a where does, feel free to bring the marketing people too, because who knows, like that person, is it a marketing call or does design do the brand thing and the naming is like,
yeah, we submit ideas for names. I would say, you know, we were included in the process, but yeah, marketing generally names the vehicles. I mean, and you know, there was a concerted effort to walk away from the alphanumeric stuff, you know,
CT4, CT5,
past,
CT6.
really as a break towards like, these are EVs, these are different. And that's where a lot of that came from. But I think really trying to telegraph a connection between all the EVs without sticking an E on the end, or IQ was the suffix, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Escalade's Escalade back when everything was, you know, CT4 or whatever. Escalade was Escalade. So yeah. Don't mess with the moneymaker. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That name has stuck for a long time, and it's kind of a cornerstone of the brand, so you don't mess with it for sure.
But there's so many cool names within the Cadillac, the history of Cadillac, that, you know, not Catera, but
he's trying to say Coupe de Ville,
Eldorado. Eldorado, Coupe de Ville. But and I feel like in this moment, right? Everybody and their mama, to your point, is adding an E or an I or a weird O and painting the thing and lighting it up in like a blue or a green. You could hard pivot and be totally within the Cadillac sort of history and legacy into some sweet, like cursive, some lettering on the side, but of like a monolith futuristic kind of vehicle. Like I feel like, and we're going to talk about what Jaguar's doing, but is this something, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like I think there's a mood for EVs to have a story.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these upstarts don't have a story. And Cadillac has some of the greatest stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there are a lot of great names in the Cadillac repertoire. There was a period where maybe the brand got soured and some of the names kind of carry baggage. And I think that's kind of why maybe, steering away from some of those, there's people still remember some of the ones that we don't like to talk about as much, like, in the 80s.
Sure.
Yeah, but I get it.
But he's not. Yeah, he's not saying do the Cimarron. He's saying do the.
Right.
Most people
I get you.
very fondly like Eldorados.
But
what a name!
Even the
City of Gold.
Even the vehicles of that era now are. It's like The Sopranos. It's like looking back. It's like looking at the gangster movies. What's the one? Casino.
Mm-hmm.
And that era of where it's like you go inside and Sharon Stone's in a mink on a blood red tufted leather, interior Cadillac, and you're just like, yeah. Like, where's the modern version of that?
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm just incepting.
But also, maybe to Brian's point, if I put words in your mouth, like, is there a market for that? Would be my only question.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I think one of the things Cadillac has been in the past when they were at the height, say 50s and 60s. They weren't looking back at all.
Right.
I mean, it was absolutely looking as far forward
technology.
as we could. Yeah. How do we put the most advanced technology in a vehicle, make it plush and comfortable, and aim for the stars? And that's what we've done now with the EVs. I think there's a danger of falling into looking in the past too much and kind of resurrecting or coming across as retro.
Right.
So I think, reinventing the brand with EVs and really pushing towards the future was kind of the goal. So I think it's kind of a clean break and really being able to identify the EVs from the ICE. And then maybe when there's no more ICE and we're all EVs, there's another opportunity to, maybe resurrect some of those names. I don't know.
Okay. And then, so can you talk, how did Celestic come to be? So if you're listening, you don't know, Celestic is also coming very soon. $350,000 base price, something
Flagship.
like that. Beyond Flagship, like totally, like, oh, you want us to, match the interior leather to your eye color? Like, come out to Detroit, we'll do it, right? I mean, fully bespoke or custom or whatever the word is.
Yep.
Like, how did that happen? And
it took a big push. I mean, everybody has wanted. In fact, that's the fourth. If you count the 16, that's the fourth kind of Cadillac flagship I've worked on. There were two in between that started and stopped, but the Celestic was really an effort to be, okay, we're going EV. Let's do the ultimate. Like, this is the ultimate of all ultimate Cadillacs, and kind of get back to some of the really bespoke Cadillacs that were done, with Pininfarina back in the day, or the Eldorado Brougham,
or even like the 20s and 30s, right? I mean, like the real coach built.
Yeah, hand built, design your materials, pick your colors, we'll paint to whatever color you want, and it took an effort to get that far into it. I mean, I think at the time Cadillac was kind of aiming here, and design, we were pushing even higher, and we got the support. I mean, you start, I think design has the responsibility to show the company where to go. And that was a perfect example, I think, of like, look, we have to aim beyond all that because we're trying to change perception here. And
so how does that, so are you saying, because when you first started describing it, I said, oh, so somebody noticed that there's an opportunity here in this industry move to EVs for maybe Cadillac to own this higher stratosphere that they haven't had in a long time. But you're saying design actually pushed and said we should be up playing in here. Is that more accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always get into kind of pricing. Where does the price want to land? Where can we?
Right.
You start talking with marketing, and it's like, well, what can we price for as our brand? And it's like, well, it can't be retroactive. We have to like go beyond, and the people will come.
It just that's prevalent with throughout the industry. Like just a funny story. I had a friend who did PR at Land Rover, and I went to go see some Monterey Special Edition Range Rover. It's like I think it was like one of 17 or something. And I saw him afterwards, and he said, "Oh, did it cost $347,000?" And I go, "Yes, exactly." He goes, "Yeah, we did a study. That's the most people will pay for a Range Rover." That's so I was like, "Oh, interesting."
Very specific number.
But that was the number they went with. Yeah.
So what was your involvement with Celestic? The original concept all the way through, or?
I was on the project up until theme is fully established and the car is almost done, and it needed to be like final execution. And then there needed to be so much attention on color, trim, and materials, and how the final execution was, that I was overseeing so many Cadillacs at the time. And we did the entire portfolio of EVs kind of simultaneously.
Right.
And with a small team, and it was a lot of work at the time. We were still doing updates to the ICE vehicles. So, so the decision was made to put then Aaron Crosley in to really complete the deal and make sure that the customer was at the heart of, how the thing gets built and specified. And
this was all done at the former West Coast Design Studio, or was this done? Where was
it was done in Detroit.
It was done in Detroit?
Yeah, this was all before my move out here.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and again, if you're listening and you're not familiar with what the Celestic is,
Google it.
It's a 20 foot long fastback. I don't know what you call it, liftback. Like, I don't know what you technically call the shape. It's a curved back, fastback. But big 4-door thing. How did you guys arrive at that shape for the Flagship? I mean, you must have had like, we could do a 2-door, we could do an SUV, we could do a sports car.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think Cadillac, you think kind of big sedan. I mean, that's probably the first thing that pops in your mind. And there was Magali DeBellis had done this vision theme that, and a lot of people don't know this, but the Lyric came after the Celestic, even though the Celestic is launching after. The design of the Celestic was first, and it set the tone and became kind of the theme of the Lyric in a way, on a different proportion.
Yeah, you can see the resemblance, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a vision model when I started in Cadillac, and it was like, okay, let's make that real, and that's where all the work began.
And the Celestic was the first electric Cadillac?
It was, I would say, the first vision theme design for one. Yeah, it took a little longer to get everything lined up for that one.
Sure.
It's a very unconventional program to sort out and deliver.
You have to find like artisans, like, you know, I remember talking with Cadillac when you guys showed it at Pebble Beach, and I said, like, you know, like, who's doing the pinstripe? Because I've been to the Rolls Royce factory at Goodwood, and like, I met the guy. Yeah, I forget his name. There's a guy. He does every single pinstripe. He does it by hand.
Wow. Not only that, because Kristen Lee just did this article. You and I have both done this. This is how old we are. Yeah, they're going back and doing these story ideas again. Bentley took her to Crew and showed her the how they do the book matched wood veneers.
Oh yeah,
which leads to a question: how are you guys going to do that? This is a skill that Bentley, VW Group retained in 20 years ago when they bought Bentley. They have these artisans. They have the whole room.
I bet them guys with chisels. They have employees that do nothing but chisels.
They have books of wood with reference numbers to the piece of wood where they cut the veneer to the car it's in, so they can tell you if like you bought it. You're like, oh, you dented it. We might have one here. They have a whole leather library. They got the whole thing, right? Does that exist at General Motors? Or if it didn't, how did you, like, what right do you have to like say, hey, we need to do this? And they're like, are you crazy? Do you know how expensive it's going to be to like do all this stuff you guys want to do?
There's been a lot of that, but it's like, hey, we're going to figure it out, you know. And I think the company has never supported design. You know, in 30 years I've been there, the company's never supported design like they do now. I mean, we're really going for it, from a aesthetic perspective. And I mean, there was a lot of commitment around that car to make it really be that level of execution. So they're finding a way. I mean, we have, in some cases, our DFO shops in Detroit that actually build our concept cars are involved in some of the execution
because they're making one-off custom stuff all the time.
Interesting.
Right. You said something really fascinating. You said or you alluded to that all the EVs, Cadillac EVs, were kind of designed at the same time. Mm-hmm. Is that to me, that doesn't sound normal. Is that a normal thing to have happen, or is that sort of unique in your experience?
It's somewhat unique, but it was a big push at the time to get a whole, basically an EV portfolio together. And there was a very tight launch cadence to how they're gonna roll out, and so they were, I wouldn't say totally simultaneously, but they were on top of each other, and we were very busy at that time.
This is like 2018?
2019 through 22.
So during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it shows because I remember there's a lot of talk about this. I'm not saying anything out of school, but back in the day, BMWs, it was one sausage, 3 lengths. It was the same thing. They looked, a 3 Series looked like a 5 Series. And then they went radically away from that in the Bangle era, and now they're even more beyond that. But I've been looking at the Cadillac EVs, and what's the new 3-row that's not the IQ, but the
Vistic.
The Vistic. And I'm amazed, the Lyric, the Vistic, the Escalade IQ, they look related in a way that a lot of Mercedes maybe still does that, but a lot of car brands don't. So to me it makes sense. They kind of came out of the same team.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, and around the same time, and really with a lot of focus on a family resemblance. But we don't want to be cookie cutter. We want to have each one have its own personality, and I think we did that.
Yeah, I definitely think you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was when I saw that Vistic, I was just like, oh wow, it's even better,
Right.
Yeah, that's a cool vehicle. I mean, I think for a lot of people, Escalade's too big, and that's kind of the sweet spot. I think for a 3-row SUV with luxury attributes, that thing's awesome.
Mm.
Okay.
And plenty of power, I assume.
So
of course, EV.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I just
torque.
What was the oh gosh, I have to go back to your names. It was the 3-row that wasn't the Escalade, but had a gas engine. And I should know this.
XT6.
XT6.
Yeah.
Again, it was nice design, but for me, the powertrain was sort of didn't have, it'd be nice if they could put an Escalade motor into it, but it was a V6, and it was kind of a whatever V6.
Yeah.
So
just because there's been some recent changes on the engineering side. Who is it? Brandon Vivian was leading Celestic, and now is he still leading it? And the guy you had before is now over a Corvette. I'm screwing up the name.
You're talking about the V program.
The V program.
Yeah.
Tony was the chief engineer, and then Brandon was the executive chief engineer.
Okay.
So
but now Tony's at
Corvette.
Right. Yeah. He replaced.
He got Taj's job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon has. Is he still? He's not. He's got
a bigger role now with AVD's Advanced Vehicle Development. So, but I think he's still attached to Cadillac for a while.
Who's the engineer getting Celestic out the door?
It's probably still Brandon.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, you probably fact check me.
We've been trying to get Brandon on the show, so because he worked on the EV1. That was his first job at GM. Was wiring the batteries together or something like that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he told me that at dinner. I got to get you on this, but he's just stuck in Detroit.
That was the first electric car I ever drove. Was an EV1.
Oh, you drove one?
Yeah, back in the day.
What was it like?
1997 or 6 or 7.
I think it was even earlier. But what was it like?
It was neat, but severe range anxiety in that. I mean, 50 miles, and that was on a good day downhill with the wind behind you.
Right. I drove the Tesla Roadster, and maybe 100 miles, maybe if he didn't accelerate. If he did, it was uh-oh.
And who's not going to accelerate with the torque like that?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so let me ask you something, because this is I think this is the perfect setup. What you described in the development of all of the GM EV or the Cadillac EV lineup in the 2019 to 2021 period, super focused. Now the narrative goes, all the manufacturers are kind of woeing back a little bit, and everyone's going EREV. Everyone's talking about plug-in hybrids and range extended vehicles. What does that mean for you in design? Are you like, cool story, I'm still over here, it's fundamentally, it's going to be this shape, and whether you put a motor generator under the hood and a battery is going to be, goes from being this big to now this big, I don't care. Or no, are you guys like, oh, we got to tear them all up, start over? How does it work?
Well, our ultimate vision is still 0, 0, 0. So as an advanced design director, we're still EV. Like, we're looking beyond this next generation of vehicles to the one after it. So I think EV adoption will get there. It's just going to take a little more time than we thought. And sure, there's going to be, some needs to do some stopgap, adjust to the customer tastes, to improve greenhouse gas and still get the customers. But, in a way, hybrid vehicles are modified ICE, so they're not like complete tear-ups of vehicles, generally speaking. So I think, as a company, we're staying pretty nimble. As a design organization, we're much faster than we used to be. So, we're just adapting as needed.
Okay.
Why are you faster than you used to be? Or what allowed you to be faster?
Technology is a lot of it. I think, the tools we have now, we learned a lot during COVID, working from home, with, forcing ourselves to use digital tools in ways that we'd never used them before. And
can you give us an example?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, we did global collaboration calls over, I guess it wasn't even Teams at the time, it was Skype, with digital, like fully digital environments, headsets on with avatars pointing, in this virtual world at things. We're on little laptop screens, so it's, it takes some adjustment, but spinning environments with multiple themed cars and people in different regions all looking at the same thing. It was like we're in the future now. So it was different.
It's like you're all in the same room together as like little and just talking about something.
And these like silly little robot kind of avatars with laser pointers and stuff. But
have you noticed a trend away from clay modeling at all? At least I should say, like on your scale. Like I know smaller companies are kind of just like, why bother? But
well, I know a lot of the West Coast design studios have gone full digital. We believe wholeheartedly in 3D models, full size, 1-to-1. I think it's the best way to visualize what you have. I mean, I think, sure, you can go directly from digital to something physical in a hard model sense, but you lose that opportunity to get the hand sculpting and hand, subtlety in the surface. It's hard to get that.
I was going to say surfacing is what I asked a lot of designers.
Straight out of a computer is very difficult.
You're a 30-year veteran of design. You get these young whippersnappers coming out of that fancy art center school right around the corner, right? Is there anything you can point to that's like a missing fundamental? Like the analog is Instagram videos are funny. Like I saw this one where they handed a bunch of college students, like they showed them what a fax machine. What's this? A fax machine. They're like, telephone?
Rotary dial phone.
Rotary dial phone, right?
That's my favorite.
They showed them they showed them a cassette player, literally like
what is that?
What is that?
We're so old.
Yeah. But is there
we had them all.
Yeah. Is there any miss where you see like, oh yeah, it's because you guys only were designing on desktops, you never got your hands dirty? Is there anything like that you see?
No protractor.
There's I struggle with some of it coming out of the schools. That the digital tools are getting so good that they become kind of a step skipper. You can skip the sketch and go right to a model, and you can have somebody that's a designer, but they're kind of sculpting, and it's like, well, where's the sketch that created that? That's one of the things that I think just hand drawing shouldn't really go away. You still have to be able to describe something quickly on a piece of paper in 2 dimensions. And And, you know, one of the things we used to do that I think is really important are tape drawings. So laying tape on a two-dimensional drawing on a wall to describe a three-dimensional object and drawing the sections. And that's something that always taught designers how to lay tape lines on full-size models then. You know, you learn how to lay a tape two-dimensionally, then you learn how to lay it three-dimensionally. And that part's missing because essentially you can take the digital underlayment of the architectural components and just sketch over it in a computer and make that whatever size you want, print it and hang it on the wall. And so you have all these tools to basically skip that kind of learning element.
Mm-hmm.
But because I've seen the tape, and what's his name, your buddy?
Oh, Misha
Misha
Bokert
Bokert,
from Lamborghini. That's all he does is tape
master.
stuff.
Yeah.
He
Well,
loves it.
There's an art to it. It's
No.
totally,
Yeah.
totally
But
art.
what is it? What is that for the layman? Like,
Why is that important?
Is it that you can get the form sort of expressed in a one-to-one, like much quicker, because it's literally like you're pulling a line and you can kind of drop it?
Yeah. Well, it used to be the way you got from 2 dimensions to 3 was you lay out the car full size on a wall and you represent all 3 views and the section of the door, and then the modelers would come over and take templates right off of that and block in the model, and then you as a designer had laid those lines already full size on a 2-dimension. Now you're laying them on a 3-dimensional thing, and it's like muscle memory. You're laying it down, and it's a one-to-one reference to the car. Okay. So, but you know, we're skipping
is that
that
some
step.
of the art of being a car designer is in that transfer process?
Yes, absolutely. I think, you know, there is a skill around going from 2D to 3D and knowing what you drew. Right? I mean, understanding what everyone else sees in your sketch. And sometimes people see 3 different things, but,
right.
You know, if you're describing the form correctly, it's easy to translate into 3D.
Okay. I want to stay in this vein a little bit, and we'll talk about, because you said something super interesting there about the step skipping and how the digital tools make it so much easier. I do want to talk about the Jaguar rebrand, just because it happened. You're gonna be hearing this about a month after it happened yesterday. We saw the full car at the Miami, whatever that art show was. But I want to talk about another Jaguar first, because
It's called Art Basel, Ed.
Art Basel, whatever. I'm not that fancy.
Biggest art show in the U.S.
So first, let's establish that you're not just a car designer, and you've been very strong on EVs, but you have very analog tastes. Do you still have, we did an article on you a couple of years ago. Do you still have a 67 Triumph TR4A?
I do, actually, yeah.
And the 72 Triumph TR6?
I sold the TR6.
Okay. A 76 Jaguar XJ Coupe?
I unfortunately sold that.
Oh,
buddy.
I love that car.
Beautiful
Yeah.
car.
And a 78 Porsche 928?
I do have that still.
Okay.
Nice.
Anything else? What'd you add? What you guys, we had 2. What'd you bring in?
I added a Boxster S.
Okay.
Like everyone in the industry.
Because I'm in California and you're surrounded by those. But what else? I bought a 1960 Alfa Romeo 2000 Spider, so the big touring bodied one.
You're a real car person.
So you got exquisite taste.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, but also this is what car dudes buy.
Yeah.
This, by the way, is going to help you immeasurably in the YouTube comments. Okay, he's not just some
That's
EV
right.
lover,
right,
guys.
right.
This guy
He
really
might be
likes-
morally superior to you,
Yes,
but man, he
can-
used to have an XJ Coupe, which is really
hey
cool.
guys, guess
Yeah, it was a
what?
cool car.
You can have 2 thoughts in your head at the same time. You can like EVs. You can like old cars. It's weird.
Yeah.
Consider it. There's another Jag that came out recently. I don't know if you saw it. Happened in downtown LA. It's this Super Cat. It was
TWR.
the
Yeah,
TWR.
XJS based. Yeah.
I asked another car designer we had on this show for his thoughts, and he or she panned the hell out of it.
Did they see it in person, this car designer?
I won't, but yes, maybe.
Okay, because I will say I was there. You were there too.
Yeah.
I was there when Magnus and what's his face, Kaisa showed it. And like it does not photograph well, but it's pretty like
The specific words are, you can tell he's not a car designer, no understanding of proportion.
sure, but it was also pretty. I thought it was pretty striking.
What were your thoughts as a former XJ Coupe owner? Did you see it? Like, did you see it in person, or it's only?
I haven't seen it in person.
Okay.
I've seen the photos. I mean, I'm kind of a purist, so
Okay.
I like usually the first version of a car is the purest every time.
You know who says that? Ian Callum. That's
Yeah. Oh,
one
yeah.
of his big mantras is that they can just get fatter and more stuff glued to them.
Yeah. The unfortunate part is the cars always get better to drive. They get better powertrains, better engineering, better fit and finish, better quality, but the designs tend to go backwards.
Usually bigger motor. It's literally
That's so true.
the 240Z to 280Z.
It's so true. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I sticking with Jaguar, the F Type. There was a 1 year where they had a rear driver V8 that was awesome. I mean, it was impossible to control, but like wow. And then it's gorgeous design. And then by the time the last F Type, it drove much better, but it just got bloated and things glued to it and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to get heavier, but they still have they have more power. Yeah, and my 928 is a good example. Mine's a 78 first one,
perfect.
no sunroof, no rub strips, like the purest version of the
Posh
car.
interior.
Yes,
Of
indeed.
course.
Yeah,
Of course.
you gotta have
Nice.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that. I mean, that car reminded me of obviously the race cars that
It's
was
TWR.
TWR
I mean,
did
it
those
was
races.
supposed
Tom
to
Walkinshaw
be
Racing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, and I know that it's. I know people from big giant corporations don't like to comment on other big giant corporations, but that Jag 00, I think it's called, is pretty radical. The blue and the pink one they showed, like just thoughts on like a big EV direction for Jaguar.
Or just the attempt to relaunch the brand.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think that they obviously had to do something. I guess for me, I don't know. I guess I'm torn by like, walking away from what the brand has stood for from a kind of beauty and surface standpoint to be something different. I don't know.
that's another one that real quick. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. A lot of people said, "Boy, you should see these in person. The pictures just aren't working."
Yeah.
And that does happen
That could
with
be.
cars.
That could be. Yeah.
That
Certainly, the proportions are like shocking. So, I mean, in a good way, proportionally.
yeah, very indulgent.
Yeah.
Long
for
hood,
sure.
huge wheels.
Yeah, there's no nothing wrong with the side view proportions of that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Is it easy to summarize as it's just a architecture brutalist applied to a car, or do you think it's a little more than that?
I don't know. No comment for me really, but I'll take the high road. I'm having Jags in the past. I appreciate, I guess, the sentiment of really trying to reinvent the brand.
Got it.
Which is,
Okay.
I mean, sort of what Cadillac has done in a way with the EV
Yeah,
push and a radical new design language. You just didn't stop making cars for 18 months or whatever it was.
Right.
And what you said, I love it because you said, they had to do something, which like they, if you rewind the clock just a few years, they had the F-Type R, which is, 575 horsepower, awesome coupe. They had the XJ 575, which was the same engine in a big, beautiful coupe. They had the XF, they had the XE, they had the F Type, they had the the F Pace, the E Pace. They had a full car lineup. Nobody bought them,
Yeah.
like, and they were playing on that old heritage, and they were, beautiful and great to drive, and pace and grace and space and all that. And nobody cared, and they died. So, like they had to do something.
Yeah.
Sort of everyone's getting like, oh, Jaguar. It's like, you haven't thought about Jaguar in decades.
If you like it so much, go buy one.
Exactly. I talked to a lot of guys who are saying that. They're like, well, I drove that. I drove the 911. 911 was better, so I bought that. It's like, okay, well, okay.
Let's change gears here. General Motors, another more recent news, got that 11th team in Formula One.
Oh yeah.
It's going to
Very
be
cool.
Cadillac,
Awesome.
That's
Andretti.
wild. Yeah.
What GM Advanced Design?
Yeah.
You guys doing liveries? You guys getting to do cool stuff?
You're
with
sitting in a
Formula
wind
One?
tunnel.
I wouldn't be able to tell you if I was.
Come on.
I'd
Would
love
you
to.
like
Sounds
to?
like a good project. Yeah. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, being involved with the Le Mans hypercar, was really cool.
GTP hypercar.
Yeah. I love function-driven design, function-driven performance. Having worked on the Blackwing cars and some of those, if there's a focus on making it faster and something I do as a designer is going to make it slower, we're not going to do that.
Right.
So, yeah,
and you guys had, I've been to a bunch of the endurance races with the hybrid cars, and like Cadillac. First of all, Cadillacs sound the best by an order of magnitude.
When they pull out of the pits, that's killer.
It was so funny. I went with, was it with Cadillac? No, it was with Porsche for testing at Daytona.
Yeah.
And when we get there, they go, okay, so there's 2 other teams here. We're not going to say who, but you have to pretend like they're not here. And it was like, it was Cadillac. I know everybody there. And it was like, it was Acura. And like, the Acura goes out. It just doesn't even make a sound, basically. The Porsche goes out. It sounds okay. And then the Cadillac goes out. I remember speaking of the TWR, I was with Magnus Walker, and we're standing there, and we're at like, the first banking. And, you can kind of hear the cars. And then, after the bus stop, you can't really hear them. Cadillac, you hear the thing all the way around the track. It was just insane.
The best part is being the pits, and when you hear it come out, because they have the speed limit in the pits.
Yeah, it starts silently at first. Yeah.
And then it's like a bomb goes off when it crosses the line. It's like boom. So you Google it, go to YouTube, and look for the pullouts from the hypercars. It's insane. Great noise.
I went to Le Mans 2 years ago, and the only thing better than the Cadillacs was the NASCAR Camaro.
The garage 56.
That was so
That was
cool.
fun to watch.
It was passing everything. Yeah, it was so cool.
Well, let's play a game. Yeah. So if it wasn't, who else at GM would be responsible for designing the liveries for the cars?
Chief of Advanced Design. Right?
This couldn't be anybody in Detroit, right? What do they know about F1 racing? It's got to be the guys from the West, right? No.
We do most of our racing liveries are done in Detroit, and we have a studio that does a lot of the they're part of the accessory team. They do accessory motorsports liveries, and even like the stuff on the side of the trucks and all of that. But maybe I can wrestle that job away from them. I don't know.
Did you have you been going to any of the races in locally, meaning in the U.S.? Vegas, Miami.
I wish I could afford it. I was insistent on going to the first Vegas Grand Prix, and I looked at the prices, and I was like,
they dropped that week. They went way down.
Oh yeah. I'll have to look again, but
now you can expense it, right?
Well, hopefully I'm going to get some tickets next time. But yeah,
there you go.
So the Cadillac F1 car is for the 26 season.
Yeah, 26. Yeah.
Okay, so we won't see it for at least a year.
And it'll be the all new chassis too. It'll be the
half hybrid,
the smaller,
50%.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It is. Yeah, it's exciting. Super exciting. I'm so geeked about that it's finally happening. It's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's great to have an American brand.
Yeah, totally. And there's so many races here now. Why not?
Yeah, and if you count, as we say, Mexico City and Quebec. There's 5 races in the Americas. So
let's play a quick because we're running out of time. Lightning round here. I neglected to talk a little about this in the previous elect EV conversation. But what is something as, I don't know, is it small? Is it big? What is something like that? A GM adopting NACS chargers mean for? Does that come across your desk, or is this do it to somebody else? Where you're like, boss just said we got to put these new ports in the cars, and it's like you hand it to one of your guys, and it's like 3 minutes later, like, yes, this is what it's gonna look like. That's how you do it. Or no, you guys are not involved at all. Is that an engineering issue?
It'll come across us when the cars get refreshed. The sort of the charge doors are already there, so it's internal stuff at that point. But yeah, it's exciting to have the extra network. It's a big deal, especially out here. There's so much of it available.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
What about, do you guys do things like home charging units? You design the box?
We have a team that does that. Yeah. Our industrial design team does that stuff. Yeah.
And that's part of GM Energy?
GM Design works with GM Energy.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We've really been talking about Cadillac a lot, but GM is also Chevrolet and Buick and I'd say GMC, but the Hummer and GMC. Like how involved you're just involved in all that as well as Cadillac.
Yeah. Cadillac's just some of my history coming out here, to run the advanced, but we take care of all the brands. Yeah.
How did you decide, and I can guess the answer, but like the Silverado and the new Sierra EV are like pretty radical looking trucks. Like you look at, okay, Cybertruck's the most radical thing, blah, blah, blah. But you look at like, Rivian, it's a good looking truck, but it's kind of 3 boxes or 2 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And like Silverado's a lot happening. And same with Sierra. Like, how did you guys, okay, we're going to make a break from what we do with regular Silverado. How'd that discussion go or decision-making process?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't involved in those, but, being around them and in the building, I mean, it's really just a push to portray the future of an EV truck. I mean, really, as soon as you take a grill off of a full-size truck, it's like, okay, now what?
Especially because everybody in the business has spent the last decade plus who can build the biggest grill.
Oh, they just keep getting bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like now it's Toyota and GMC are sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And some of that's by need.
Cooling.
More and more power and, more and more cooling. But, it's, I think, they're very capable trucks and they had to look the part, but they also, you've got to meet aero targets. Being an EV is extremely important. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, you kind of take the customer needs, the aerodynamic needs, and it's kind of, you're changing the whole paradigm of what that vehicle is when you change the powertrain. So you roll that all into something cool. And I think, GM Design's on a roll. I think, we're putting out some pretty nice looking product and pretty consistently good product. And those are good examples of, I think, full-size trucks for sure.
How much time do you spend working on or thinking about the Chinese EVs, all that's happening in China?
Well, we pay a lot of attention, and it is remarkable and something that we are paying a lot of attention to. And we get, we've got studios there. We've got, 2 studios in China, and we get, reports from them, from the motor shows, and, a lot of interesting feedback from them, what's happening on the ground there. So we're definitely paying a lot of attention. I think if they ever come to our shores, there will be some real challenges. From a cost standpoint, they just have such an advantage from a cost per man hour to put the cars together.
Right, labor and subsidies help.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Have you seen any design trends out of China that that has spread beyond China? And I'm just saying this kind of naively, but there was back in the 50s and 60s, American design really shot around the world, but also Italian design really shot around the world. Is there anything you've seen with Chinese cars design wise? Because, and like you did say, it was remarkable, and I think what you meant by that was like they were nowhere like 6 years ago, and now, wow, like selling 1 million EVs a month.
Yeah. Yeah. I trend wise, I see a lot of similarity across. There's so many brands over there, and
over 100. Yeah.
And they're kind of consistently landing in the same place. So there's kind of a sea of sameness, which I wouldn't call that a good trend, but
oddly within 1.5 millimeters of a Tesla Model Y, like in any direction. So weird.
Well,
anyways, yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. The front end identities, a lot of
the
stuff.
slim lights.
Yeah. They're very similar. So,
and do you think that's just because it's a new thing and they're just like no one's willing to take risks? I mean,
maybe.
No one design risks, I guess.
I don't know. We've done a lot of research there. I've done Cadillac research in Shanghai, where we take the same car from LA to Shanghai, and remarkably very similar feedback from the customers. Like you expect the taste to be very different. But But yeah, they're pretty progressive and in on all the design trends there.
What about just getting away from the exterior? Because the part that drives me nuts, and we're trying to wrap our heads around it at MotorTrend, is all the stuff on the screens and the fundamental difference between that market and not just within the car, but within the digital sort of ecosystem, the phone, computer, content you're consuming, how you could karaoke is a big thing over there. Like every car in China, in the back, you open the little accessory. There's the charger. There's maybe a spare tire kit, and then there's a karaoke microphone. Like seriously, I'm not stereotyping. Those are my people, but like how do you approach the stuff on the screens? Like what for the different markets?
Well, I mean, I think the general basic needs are the same. I think, yeah. I mean, we basically design our stuff to be global as much as possible. There are obviously our Buicks in China that we don't sell here, like a whole bunch of them that are China specific. But we're always kind of trying to control the message around the brand here in the U.S. But we are really focused on software, UX, UI right now, and I think the big question is, where do you go now? Screens can't just keep getting bigger.
Well, I don't know. I saw that Escalade IQ. I mean, that's
well, how do you go bigger than that and still see over it? And
I don't know.
Well, you don't need to.
I still go. I can't wait to get into that thing, just because the amount of screens in that vehicle is just wild. You know, it's just like, it's nuts. But that said, we drove the Lincoln Nautilus, which we just named our SUV of the year, and it had a pillar screen.
It's great.
And it worked, because I was always like, that's nice you have a big screen. What are you going to put in it?
Right.
And they did a good job.
Great job. Very thoughtful.
Yeah, and quick and easy to kind of manipulate and change and all that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm the driver with stuff, right, that they don't need. So that's the key.
Do you find, I was with BMW one time, and they were saying that they have like an iDrive development unit for Europe, they have one for the US, and they have one for China, because they just find that like it's three very different markets, and that like Chinese customers want different things from their infotainment than Americans do, and Americans want different than Europeans. Mm-hmm. Does that hold true with GM?
I think there are some specific needs there, but we look pretty holistically across the global markets, generally speaking.
I got two questions left from the staff. One was, and because you just mentioned Buick, they have a Buick GL8. They have the minivan over there in China. How come Cadillac doesn't have a luxury MPV for that market?
For
because
Asian
it's absolutely crushing it over there. They have Lexus had one. They're getting eaten alive by these Chinese
also
EVs.
Alphard. I mean, in Japan,
Toyota Alphard. Yeah. Well, yes, but that's what I'm saying. The LM, the Lexus LM, the Alphard, they're getting annihilated by this. There's one called Denza, and BYD has these EV MPVs. It seems
because it's like half the price, double the luxury.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same luxury, half the price.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of the China EV mantra. Where's Cadillac? I mean, Cadillac has the Optic and Vistic, which I think are, but not sliding doors, and the big this kind of seat in the back, right? With the legs up.
Yeah, the Escalade IQ has the executive rear seating, center.
That's like
the center console and.
It's like 1.5 times larger though than these vehicles, right?
Well, I mean, I guess I could point to one example that we did out here in California, the Cadillac PAV, our autonomous vehicle that was shown along with the that's kind of what you're describing in an autonomous sense. So basically a big bold box that is fully autonomous, and it was called Social Space, right? So you could like hang out, go to the club with your friends, and in style.
It's funny that you bring that up, because that's exactly when I saw that when Tesla did their robotaxi event, and they're like, check this thing out. This is like their wait one more thing. I'm like, oh cool. Cadillac did that like 2 years ago. Toyota did that for the Olympics.
Right.
This is not anything new.
Blade Runner did that.
Yes, Blade Runner did that like 20 years ago.
40.
Fair. Okay. My last question, because you are the head of the advanced design, is it fair to say that sometimes GM is too far ahead? Like, we talked a little about EV1, First with EVs, right? OnStar. There's a whole bunch of these things. OnStar.
Skateboard chassis.
Skateboard chassis was not EV1. It was, I forget the name of it. It was
Autonomy.
Yes, Autonomy, right? And then Chevy Volt was like the first with the E-Rev. But I'll tell you the one thing that absolutely kills me is this was like 2016, 2015. The GMTs, the Suburban and Tahoe, remember it had the screen that would slide up and you'd put your cell phone in there and there's actually
the
a little
drug
port,
trap. Yeah, yeah.
and you could like charge your phone and then it would go down and then you couldn't access it when you're driving. And I was like, who's going to use this? Now it's like, this is what everybody needs, because when you're driving and everybody's like looking at their phone, you're like, put that thing away.
Yeah.
Where should you put it? How about a little box in the dash that you can't touch? Like, you guys ever go like, we had that and now everybody's got it and we don't do that anymore.
Well, I guess when you innovate, sometimes you can overshoot, but it takes time for people to catch up, I guess. But
like, I guess you guys have it now with Hummer, but like 4-wheel steering on the big trucks. Like,
yeah.
I guess nobody spent money to buy it, but like, wow, it's great.
Yeah.
And like Hummer, you can do a U-turn in 2 lanes. It's insane.
Yeah. The crab walk's really cool.
Oh, and that too. Yeah, the crab walk's cool. All that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Any other staff?
That's it.
'Cause I can keep. Okay.
We killed it.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm gonna try and do this question. Was he there when you went to the design studio?
Yes.
So there's a very cool product that I can't talk about that I think everybody will love when it happens. Like when are we going to see that? Can you give us a time frame on
to
that?
the car we were building?
Yes.
The
That like I heard about it. I can't say what it is, but man, that sounds cool. Like, and something I was like, they should have been building this for 20 years. When does that happen?
Well, we're finishing those right now. One of the 2 vehicles is done, but I would say the time and date is not disclosed yet.
Okay,
but soon.
Soon. All right.
very cryptic.
We'll take soon. Yeah. Hey, it's fun to have cryptic.
All right. Then I'll just go to the last question.
All right.
Because we spent a lot of time interrupting you and interjecting our thoughts. Is there anything you want to tell the future car interested audience, whether it's internal combustion or EV, about what you're doing, about what to look forward to from GM, from Cadillac specifically?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Hang on to your butts, folks. It's going to be awesome. Like, be super cryptic.
I think there's a lot of resistance to EVs by people that haven't driven them. And I think as soon as you drive one, you'd be shocked. I stepped out of an Escalade into my Lyric, and I don't miss I thought I would miss the Escalade, and I don't. They're fun to drive, torquey, smooth, quiet, and if you got a charger at home, it's like, I don't know, charge it a couple times a week, if that, and you're good. So I think the vehicles on their own merit, and there's no compromise. Like I guess I don't know what the compromise is. Long trips, you can find a place to charge. Like there's plenty of great apps to show you where, and just takes a little planning. That's all.
Okay. And this is great because I remembered I wanted to ask you this. Because you're a man of taste and distinction based on your car collection, what is the best, if you're to build the Lyric in the configurator and then maybe add some of your own aftermarket, what's the best spec? Because I look at those, I see those Lyrics, I'm like, that thing just slammed just a little bit more, just dropped, and on some big wheels, and maybe they're the same color as the body, or maybe they're like a dark bronze.
So you're saying ultimate Lyric spec?
Yeah. What would you do? What would like? Give me a couple mods you would do for a Lyric.
Well, we just launched the V, which would be the one to have for me. It sits a little lower. It's trimmed lower. The lowers are body color. Unique wheel.
What color?
Oh, that's tough call. I don't know. I've got one in the kind of light gunmetal, which I like. Really shows off the form a lot. There's a great red as well. I think we did the clay model in red most of the time we were developing it, but and then I've found just run it in sport mode all the time. Makes it more fun to drive.
What about wheels? Would you go with?
Well, you gotta have the 22s. Yeah, the 22-inch dark wheel is kind of the way to go for me. But
Yeah, good. No chrome. I like that.
yeah,
Oh, you black it out. Yeah, that's right, because it's a
Red, black
Research.
wheels. Perfect. Yeah.
yeah.
all right.
Cool.
All right. Well, Brian Smith, awesome to have you on. We'll have you on again when you release a coupe. So a beautiful.
I'll get
coupe.
working on it.
Yes. No, this is great. Thanks for
thank you so
taking the
much.
time for coming
No,
out.
thanks for having me. Really good. Really fun.
Thanks.
The InEVitable Vodcast, brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya, inspired by the future, designed for the now.